Today, we're diving into something that's been stirring up quite the conversation online: physical games on the Nintendo Switch 2. There's been a lot of chatter surrounding this topic, especially after that recent Nintendo Direct, where we got a better look at the system and how games will be distributed. And I've got to say, it's raising some eyebrows, and not in the best way. So here's the deal. On the surface, it looks like the Nintendo Switch 2 is continuing to support physical media, just like the original Switch. Great, right? But once you start digging into the actual games being released, it paints a very different picture, especially when you look at third-party games. Now, first-party Nintendo titles, no surprise here. Those are coming out on physical cartridges, just like they always have. That's what Nintendo does. But third-party games? That's where things get murky. Aside from maybe 2 confirmed titles, nearly every third-party release we've seen for the Switch 2 is going to be digital only or use these so-called digital game cards, basically a box with a cartridge that prompts a download when you pop it in. And yeah, I know that's confusing. It's like having a physical case, maybe even a cartridge inside, but the actual data still has to be downloaded online. So why is this happening? To understand it, you have to look at cartridge sizes and costs. On the original Nintendo Switch, developers had access to a range of cartridge sizes: 4 GB, 8 GB, 16 GB, all the way up to 32 GB. That kind of flexibility gave developers some leeway in how they released games. But with the Switch 2, from what we can tell so far, that variety might be gone. Right now, the only confirmed game cartridge size is 64 GB. No word yet on whether smaller sizes will be available again. And I know what some people are saying: well, of course there will be smaller sizes. Why wouldn't Nintendo offer those again? But here's the thing. There's actually more evidence that they won't than that they will. Let me explain. We've seen a bunch of early game file sizes for the Switch 2, and many of them are relatively small. Bravely Default HD is 11 gigs. Capcom's Kunitsu Gamey is 12 gigs. Even Puyo Puyo Tetris 2’s clocks in at just 4 gigs. 4 gigs. That could easily fit on even the smallest cartridge used on the OG Switch. So if there really were multiple cartridge sizes this time around, why aren't these publishers using them? Why are these games only being offered digitally or through those annoying download cards? You'd think publishers would want to sell physical versions if it made financial sense. And on the original Switch, that's exactly what we saw. Even smaller indie games got physical releases, sometimes with collector's editions or through companies like Limited Run. But now, it seems like unless you're Nintendo, your game isn't getting a true physical cartridge. This all reminds me of the old Nintendo 64 days. Back then, third-party developers had to pay Nintendo to manufacture the cartridges. It was expensive, anywhere from $20 to $30 per cartridge. That's part of why some games, like Doom 64, were way more expensive than Nintendo's own first-party titles. Now apply that logic to the Switch 2. If Nintendo is only offering a 64 GB cartridge and nothing smaller, then that's probably the only option for publishers. But here's the catch. Those big cartridges aren't cheap. So if a publisher wants to put an 11 GB game on a 64 GB cart, they're essentially wasting space and spending extra money they don't need to. And at the end of the day, publishers are trying to keep costs low. They want to sell that game for $40 or $50. But if they have to eat the cost of a premium cartridge, suddenly they need to bump the price up to $60 or even $70 just to make a profit. And that's a much harder sell for consumers. Sure, you might be saying, I'd pay more for a full physical copy. And I hear you. But you're not the target customer. The average gamer wants the cheapest, most convenient option, and for most publishers, that means going digital. Now, like I said earlier, there are a couple exceptions. One is the new Switch 2 version of Cyberpunk 2077, which is confirmed to be on a physical cartridge. But guess what? That's a CD Projekt Red game, and just like with The Witcher 3 on the original Switch, which came on a rare 32 GB cartridge, Nintendo probably helped subsidize the cost. Another exception is a Nintendo-published version of a third-party game, but that doesn't count much because it's still Nintendo footing the bill. So unless your game is part of a special deal with Nintendo, you're probably not getting a physical release. Not on a cartridge, anyway. If you're someone who's big into physical collecting, yeah, this kind of sucks. The Switch was a great console for physical games. Tons of indie games got physical love, first-party support was strong, and even many third-party titles got real cartridges. But with the Switch 2, it's looking like a lot of that is going away. Between high manufacturing costs, a likely single cartridge size, and a push toward digital distribution, physical collecting might get a lot tougher, especially for third-party titles. I've kind of moved on from needing everything to be physical, but I know a lot of you haven't. And for you, this could be a deal breaker. At the end of the day, until Nintendo confirms multiple cartridge sizes, I think it's safest to assume there's only one, 64 gigabytes. And if that's the case, we shouldn't expect many physical releases from third parties. Not unless they're willing to eat the cost or charge more, which most won't. So yeah, it's kind of a bummer. Especially if you were hoping the Switch 2 would carry on the same physical legacy as the original. But hey, maybe Nintendo will prove us wrong. I'd love to see that. But what do you think? Is this making you second-guess buying third-party games on the Switch 2? Would you pay more for a proper physical edition, or are you cool going digital? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, tap that notification bell, and of course, share it with a fellow Nintendo fan. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.